Okay, so just like it has been in the last few units, if you did not get full points on your binder check, then you can still submit it for full points. You just have to, anytime I'm not teaching, show it to me again. Like it's really not a big deal that you didn't have it the first time. If you don't have a good score on it, it will probably tank your grade a bit because it goes in the project category and that's 20% of your grade is just you taking notes. So it's supposed to be like beneficial to your grade and kind of the cushion. But of course, if you're like not hanging on to your notes or you're not taking notes, then it does hurt you. But like in the grand scheme of things, if you're not having your notes, I feel like there's no way you could really practice effectively. So just be better from here on out. Redo the notes if you lost them. They're all in Schoology or do some IXL skills that kind of make up for it was also going. But this one was the shortest binder check. You had all the breaks to make sure it was fully complete. So kind of had high hopes for it. But regardless, it is what it is. Tomorrow we are testing for Unit 2, Part 2. So make sure that you understand all parts of the study guide. Your test will look exactly like it. We'll get the key later for the constructive response, which I'll post. But if you have any questions on the other study guide, now's the time to ask. So also side note, I did send a message to you and all your parents reminding you of this travel opportunity. The informational meeting is on Monday. Even if your parents can't go to that, if you are remotely interested, they can just register and they'll get the information. So I won't really be messaging much about it anymore. It's more like if you want the information, you have to register, and that's how you'll get it. So it's not like a binding contract. It's not like if you register, you have to go on the trip. It's just getting information about it. But yeah, so we are going to take any questions now. What are we confused on from any parts of the study guide? No questions so far? Are you getting from all of it? Awesome. This first study guide. All right, so question 3, in case you guys want to follow along, maybe you don't need help with that question. That's totally fine. But this is your time in class to work on your study guides before you take a test. So this one's a good question. You have a few options. So this is where you could either plug in your numbers, simplify and see if it's true, then it is the solution. You could solve it and see all that x could be. You could even type it exactly how it looks into Desmos and write that inequality from your screen. So there's really 3 ways you could do it. I hope that I do not have to make this extra credit and that you guys get it right first. But anyway, what option do you guys think would be the easiest out of everything I just said? Okay, someone said Desmos. If you are going that route, you just have to know how to read your answer. So I'll do that. I'll also still show you how to solve because as you can see, like on your constructed response, you kind of don't have an out on that one. You have to be able to solve on that one. But if it's multiple choice like this one, you could just type it in. So x over 2 greater than or equal to 1 plus x over 4. Make sure it looks exactly how it looks on your paper. But then you have to be able to interpret this. So it's not a linear, well, I guess it is technically linear, but it's not like a y equals mx plus b. It's just one variable, and that variable is x. So it's like you're looking at the x-axis as your number line. It's kind of like plotting it on a number line like this, we have a closed circle on the 4 and it's shaded that way. So we're saying that x can be greater than 4 or less than 4. Are these x's over here greater or less than 4? And because this is a solid line going through it, also, I mean, the symbol's right there too. It should have a little line underneath. So then we're saying x can be everything that is greater or equal to 4. So is -3 greater or equal to 4? Is 6 greater or equal to 4? We're gonna pick that one. This isn't a select all, but let's just make sure like nothing weird is going on. Is 3 greater or equal to 4? Is -6 greater or equal to 4? So you found your answer. You really didn't have to do that much work except know how to read it. That is a good way. But like you saw on your practice constructed response test, you do have to solve some hard ones and show all your steps. So let's talk about how we actually solve it. When you're solving, you kind of go through a list of steps. What do you usually do first if you see it in a problem? And do I need to distribute in this one? No, so you move on to the second step, which is combine like terms. Do I have any like terms to combine? No, like on the left I don't, and on the right I don't. So then we move on to step 3, which is move the variable to one side. Which I do need to do that step because I have x's on both sides. But right now it's hard because they're actually both trapped in a fraction. How can you make any fraction not a fraction anymore? Multiply by the denominator. Now, these are 2 separate denominators. So, I mean, you could do it separately. You could multiply the whole thing by 2 and then the whole thing by 4. But like that would work. What I would rather do is work smarter, not harder, and think of like a number I could multiply it by and get rid of both denominators. So it's kind of like when you want to make the fractions have the same denominator. How can I make 2 become 4? Times it by 2, right? Maybe I should think of it a different way. Maybe I should think of it the opposite way and simplify. If I were to multiply the whole thing by 4, because I know that 2 is a factor of 4, I know that if I do 4 divided by 2, that would still work out nicely, and it would at the same time get rid of this denominator. So that's what I'm going to do. And when I do that, so I'll show you it looking kind of ugly at first. What's 4 times 1? And then this one just becomes, well, I'll show you it and then this. So I multiplied everything by 4. What's 4x divided by 2? And what's 4x divided by 4? 1x. So me doing that got rid of both denominators in one step. Okay, so if you have 2 different ones, you can kind of think like, what's the least common multiple? And then do multiply by that number. I know, a little challenging, but this is helpful for your constructive response. So now when we're moving the variable, which one do we usually recommend you move? And that would be this x. How would I cancel it here? Whatever you do on one side of the symbol. What's 2x minus x? 1x. And now it's fully isolated. We're finished. That would have been our step 4, by the way, is isolate x. All right, so then you look at your answer options. Only one of them is greater or equal to 4, and that's the 6. Questions on that? All right, questions on others? Any from like the paper? Number 2 on the construction. Okay. So for this one, you had 2 difficult inequalities to solve and show all your steps. So that's why I still bothered showing you, because we have a constructed response question on it. If you were to just use Desmos, I mean, you'd get partial points for having the right answer, but you wouldn't get the full points. You have to show all steps in this one. And did you need help with both inequalities? Okay. So the first one is kind of similar to the one you saw for the online part. We have a fraction in here with 2 fractions, and they are 2 different denominators. So you could multiply the whole thing by 5 and then multiply the whole thing by 10, up to you. Voice it up. And then that's up to you, however you want to get rid of it. But I personally like working more efficiently. Can you think of a number that would get rid of both denominators if I multiply? Okay, 2/5, is that gonna get rid of a fraction? Okay, 5/10 is still a fraction. Any other numbers I should multiply by? 10. 10 divided by 5 is 2. That would make it like not a fraction anymore. And then 10 divided by 10 is 1. So I'm going to multiply it by 10. So I guess with these, you could try to see if the bigger denominator is like their least common multiple. That's what I'm going to do first. Notice we didn't need to distribute earlier. We didn't need to combine like terms earlier. But we do need to move the variable to one side, and I'm going to first multiply the whole thing by 10 in order to do that. Every single term. So what is 10 divided by 5? So this part's going to end up being 2 times the x minus 4. We could distribute that in the next step, but that gets rid of the fraction. 10/10 simplifies to, so then it's just going to become x right there. Multiplied by the denominator makes it not a fraction. And then the 10 times 3, you still have to multiply it by every term. 10 times 3. All right, now it's a little bit easier. I do have to distribute now. So let's do that real quick. What do I get from distributing that to? And what's 2 times -4? So don't forget, contributing, you have to multiply by both. All right, now we're able to effectively move the variable to one side. And notice so far we've not had to flip the sign at all because we only multiplied by a positive. So let's keep the sign the same. Which one do we always recommend to move? So I'm going to move this x by doing what? And whatever you do on one side. So I get 2x minus x, which is x. Bring down everything else. So I still have -8 greater than 30. All I did was subtract, so I don't need to flip the sign. And now isolate x. We'll do what's being done to it and then undo it. What's opposite of subtracting x? Or sorry, opposite of subtracting 8 is adding 8. And we're doing that on both sides. So then I get x greater than, what's 30 plus 8? And that's my answer for. All right. So those of you sleeping, like, I really just don't want to hear anything about your grades later on. Like, we're literally going over examples of test questions. It's just a waste of your time and here. If you're just gonna. All right, but now the second inequality. Follow those same steps we talked about earlier. What's going to be my first step in this one? Distribute. We have the parentheses set up. So we have to do that first. We're going to first distribute a -3 and then a -1. So let me first write down the 5x because that's not going to change. Table 5, can you tell me what we get from distributing the -3? Okay. Plus -18 is the same as just doing -18. So I'm just going to leave it like that. But I mean, that's not technically wrong. I'm just going to leave it like as -18. Okay, is that good? Leave the sign alone for right now. The 8 is still there. Table 6, can you tell me what we get from distributing this -1? So like what's -1 times x? Okay, and what's -1 times -7? A +7, so we're gonna write +7. All right, so common mistake is people only distribute the negative to like the first term. You need to distribute it to both and follow your integer rules. And yes, this is a -1 because if it's not written, it's implied. Questions so far? All right, so we distributed. Do we need to combine like terms in this one? Yes. So table 1, what are my like terms on this side? And when I combine them, I get 2. Good. 2x minus 18 less than or equal to table 2. What are my like terms on this side? Okay. And class, what's 8 plus 7? Good. And it's positive. Right on that side if you want, but the x is still negative. And now we're on the step of moving the variable to one side. So try to move the smaller one because then it's less likely you'll have to work with the negative, less likely you'll have to worry about flipping the sign. So I'm going to move the -x. Table 3, how do I cancel out the -x? And what's 2x plus x? All right. Now we're in the isolating stage. So look at what's being done to the x now that it's on one side. Start with what's farther. So table 3, what's farther, the 3 or the 18? And how do I cancel it? Good. We add it because you have to think like, how do I make this 0? I get 3x less than or equal to 33. Notice I don't have to flip the sign because all I did was add. What's opposite of multiplying by 3? Do I need to flip the sign when I do that? No, because why? Because it's not a -3. You only flip the sign when you multiply or divide a negative on both sides. So no. 33 divided by 3 is, and there's that one. So I'm a huge step-by-step person. Check if you need to distribute, combine like terms, move the variable to one side, then isolate it. Can't go wrong if you follow those steps. You know there might be other ways that also. All right, any other questions from either side of you guys? lines. 5 on the online study guide. You were talking about this, right? Okay. So writing the system from the graph. So I try to rule out my answer options as much as I can based on certain things that I think are easier. So there's lots of things you need to usually check for. Usually need to check like the slope, the y-intercept, solid versus dashed, and shaded above or below. Solid versus dashed is usually the easiest for me because if it's dashed, you only have a couple options for symbols. It's this or this. And then if it's a solid line, it's this or this. So since I have both a solid and a dashed, let's see if I can eliminate any answer options. All right, so far I can't eliminate any based off of that because each of them have at least one that would make a solid and one that would make a dash. So not really helpful there. I notice my answers are all in slope intercept form, so I can probably eliminate some based on the shading. So let's look at the solid line first. Is this solid line shaded above or below? Below, because like this part that's not overlapping, you can see it's below it. So for the solid line, I need to have it be this then. So let's see if we can eliminate any based on that. While I'm here though, this dashed line is shaded in what direction? So then for my dashed to be shaded above, it would have to be this one. So any that don't have both of these, then I will eliminate those. So that looks good so far. Okay, so we can eliminate C, and your answers might be shuffled, but like on mine, I can definitely eliminate C because I would have it shaded the other way. And I can also eliminate. All right, so now between A and B, see what's different. It looks like they have the same y-intercepts, so I'm not gonna compare those because they already have them the same for the solid and the dashed. They do have a different slope for the solid line though, so that's what I'm going to check. Work smarter, not harder. So I'm going to see, is my slope 5/6 or 6/5 for the solid line? Going this way, it looks like I'll run out of room, so let me try working backwards. So when you're working to the left of the origin, you kind of do the opposite. So whereas normally I go up 6 to the right 5, I'm going to go down 6, down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and to the left 5. 1, 2, 4, 5. All right, so I am leaning toward that one being the answer. Let me just check 5/6 for fun. So I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and to the left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can see that's not where the line is going. So that's how I would check it. But I mean, what tool do you have on your test that is really helpful? Desmos. So I mean, although the graph might not look exactly like this on Desmos, you can still eliminate some of the answer options using Desmos. If you type in your answers and see which one best matches this graph. With the slopes being really similar, that's kind of tricky, but that's how you can eliminate. So on mine, it was B, but yours could be shuffled. Make sure you pick the ones that looks exactly like this. All right, might have time for one more, depending on how long it is. Any other questions? Maybe two more, and one. So then keep working, don't pack up till 8:14, so you do 6 days of any other questions, let me know.